wide open there, but they were smiling.
And he was used to traveling being stationed in the Navy, so it was nothing. And we were used to it. He was always gone. And when I got older, I actually liked it when he was gone. Because he had rules too.
Right.
Call the meeting to order, if we could, for the December 15th Wycomico County Council Legislative Session. Those that would like to stand and join us in the Lord's Prayer and Pledge of Allegiance, please do.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Entertain a motion from council to approve the minutes from December 1st, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion, corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor of the minutes as noted, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Minutes are approved. Morning, Mr. Kramer.
Good morning, Mr. President, Chairman of the County Council, ladies and gentlemen.
If you could get that mic closer to you, please.
I'm sorry, thank you. Good morning, Mr. President, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen. The first item of the agenda this morning is a presentation of the annual audit by our external auditors, PAC, and Stern. To make the presentation are Ms. Ashley Stern, and the lead auditor, and Mr. Michael Plager, managing partner.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. Good morning.
Morning.
For the for the public, if you could let everybody know, state your name and let everybody know your association. Thank you.
My name is Mike Klager. I'm partner with PAC and Company.
My name is Ashley Stern. I'm the lead auditor on the Wycomico County Audit.
Kevin Norman, staff accountant with Wycomico County Audit.
A lot to read.
Yes. We only have 133 pages to go through, so thank you for inviting us here today. Each of you should have received a copy of the financial statements prior to today's meeting. I believe a PDF copy was emailed to everyone, so hopefully you had a chance to look at that prior to our presentation today.
If I could ask one clarification. Laura, this is the same as this, correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
There-
Ashley, do you want to confirm that?
There are some few minor
modifications,
minor
but,
changes.
yeah, I would use the bound copy as your final.
We just got the bound copy, but we've had this, and this is what we've been reading,
Right.
so I just want to
Yeah.
make sure.
Sure. There are some minor changes.
Okay.
And we can probably point those out to you after the
Yeah.
meeting if you want.
So,
Our purpose today is to present the audit results and mention some of the key highlights, and then, of course, to answer any questions you might have either today or even after the meeting. If something comes up after the fact, certainly we're available to answer those questions. I'd like to begin with the audit report, which in the bound financial statements is pages 1 through 3. The most important paragraph in there is really the opinion paragraph, which is on page 2, about the middle of the page. And I'm happy to report that our opinion on the county's financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2015 is unmodified. And this means that the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles as of that date. This is also known as a clean opinion and is the highest level of assurance that we can give as auditors. I did want to point out the next paragraph down under the opinion section. It talks about a change in accounting principle for 2015. And that is related to some pension changes that occurred. As a result of accounting change, municipalities and local governments are now required to record directly in their financial statements, the pension liability. In the past, which you had to, it was basically disclosed in the footnotes, 100 pages back, but it was never directly recorded as a liability on the statements. So that's a big change in the current year. And just to kind of show you the impact of that, if you'll turn to page 17. This is the statement of net position, which basically lists the county's assets and liabilities as of June 30th, 15. And under the liability section, there's a new line item on there called net pension liability for $6,964,000. And again, if you looked at last year's statement, you would not see that liability noted. So, as I mentioned, the pension liabilities have always existed, but they've never had to be recorded before. So that's a major change. And also, it's important to note that that does not mean that that's an entire liability due today. It doesn't really change your calculation of your annual requirement to fund the pension. It's just taking that liability that was buried back in the footnotes and stuck it out there
Put it where
for
it should be.
presentation. Right. In addition to the audit report, there's the next report on pages 4 and 5. Is a report on internal controls and compliance matters. Once again, I'm happy to report that we did not identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. However, on page 5, you'll note the compliance paragraph. We did note some compliance matters regarding the Maryland Department of the Environment landfill penalties, which were actually noted in last year's audit, but at this point have not been completely resolved. One of them has been lowered, but they're still not totally outstanding at this point. So we're still showing these as compliance violations until they're resolved. And those are explained further on page 99.
Right.
If you want to kind of look at those. But those are not new items. They're basically a repeat of last year's findings. So those are the two reports that are in the financial statements. There's also a separate bound auditors communications report, which includes a management letter. We've noted some findings and some recommendations in areas for improvement. I don't want to go through each of those items individually, but I do want to point out that there is a separate management letter. And I also want to mention that the county has already begun taking steps to address those issues. They've been discussed previously with management. And with that, that's kind of an overview of the reports. I'll turn it over to Ashley to go through some of the numbers with you.
Thank you, Mike. I'd like to draw your attention to some of the graphs that are in front of you. They're a separate stapled copy, and they'll also have the graphs up on the PowerPoints as well. The first graph that you see in front of you is a comparison of your general fund equity over the course of the last 5 years. You can also see this in more detail on pages 19 and 21 of the financial statements. And also there is more detail on pages 6 through 16 in the management discussion and analysis. Your unassigned fund balance has had an increase of over $3.5 million in this past year compared to last year. We'll discuss the reason for these changes over the next few slides, but I did want to point out the major increase over there. On the next slide, you'll see a comparison of your general fund revenues over the past 5 years. We've seen some pretty large increases this past year, mainly in your property taxes, and that's due to the increase of the property tax rate in fiscal year 2015. You also saw an increase of your income tax revenue in fiscal year 15, and that was due to the income tax rate increase during the calendar year 2014. This also put that line item $6 million over what you had budgeted, so you received $6 million more in revenue than what your plan was. And those details can be seen in the back supplementary schedules. They start on page 106. The other item noted here are your other revenues. This includes all other revenues other than income taxes and property taxes. And there was an increase over the past 5 years. That is just due to different revenues increasing, different grants, a couple of various things. And those details can also be seen back on page 106. The next graph is a detail of your general fund expenditures by type. We split this out into 5 different types. The main increase that I wanted to point out here is your other operating increase. I know that looks like a large jump of $5 million, but that's mainly due to the inclusion of the roads fund in the general fund this year, and then also the recreation fund moved out, so that net change is really just roads. Roads brought in $6 million in other operating expenses, whereas Rec and Parks had $1 million the net is about the 5. Total expenses in the general fund increased by 4.4 million, mostly due to the inclusion of roads. And also, the general fund was $4 million under budget for fiscal year 2015. Also, that's back on page 106. You can see the comparisons. The next graph you're seeing is a nice pie chart to kind of show the expenses by department in comparison to the other departments. As in the past couple years, the education has been the largest expense, followed by public safety, debt service, and detention center. And with the exception of the roads and the public works department change, these are pretty much in line with where they have been in the past 5 years. You'll also notice a little pie called other. Those include the miscellaneous expenses, which includes your hospitalization, some miscellaneous social security expenses, employee benefits, and then the social service expenses. We also have focused on a few of your enterprise funds for the purposes of these graphs. The first one we'll take a look at is solid waste. We took a look over 5 years' trends of their revenues, operating expenses, and their operating income and loss. You'll see this year has been the first year out of the last 4 that solid waste is experiencing an operating income as compared to an operating loss. The majority of that change is included in an increase in revenue due to the increase in tipping fees and a decrease in various expenses, notably in your fuel expenses over at solid waste and various personnel expenses, salaries, and other contractual expenses, thus resulting in that $700,000 change from an operating loss to operating income. The second enterprise fund that we focused on was your airport fund. This year, if you were looking at our last year charts from last year, we only showed the operating income and loss, but we thought it might be beneficial for you to see that change in net position, which includes non-operating expenses. Including in non-operating expenses are mostly grants. So they're not for operating, whereas depreciation is including up in operating expenses. So that's why you see such a large change from operating income loss to the change in net position. This year, we had $3.1 million in grants compared to our $2.3 million that we received last year, thus decreasing the change in net position. And that's all the financial highlights I have for you.
Any questions for us at this point?
Council questions?
On the pension issue, I noticed, reading through there, that it talked about the assumed rate of return at 7.75.
Yeah.
It might be in there, I couldn't find it in the volumes. What is the actual rate of return over the past few years?
I'm not sure of the few years, but the current year was virtually zero. If you look back on page 110, there's a kind of a summary of the pension. And around the middle of the page, you'll see a line item called net investment income. It was like 77,000 versus 7.4 million the previous year. So it's virtually a 0% rate of return, which, you know, long term, they projected when they're doing their actuarial studies, it looks like they're using a rate around 7.5 to 7.75%. But obviously this year was significantly less than that.
I mean, you know, I mean, and I know in years past it's fluctuated. You know, we've gotten over 7% some years and
Right.
under. I mean, you know, but we continue to use that 7.75%. It doesn't seem to be based on anything except that's just what's used.
Well, that's really an actuarial determination based on the investment mix within the pension plan itself. And that's what they've determined over a long term, that's a reasonable rate. Now, that may change. As a matter of fact, there is a section in here, if I can point it out, where it says if the rate were to change 1%, what would happen to the liability? 1% either way. And I'm not sure. Do you know what page
Page
it's on?
72.
Yeah. And so if you look at 72 at the bottom, where I mentioned that there was a current liability of 6.9 million, if there was just a 1% decrease down to 6.75%, you'd have a $15 million liability. So the rate of return definitely does impact, you know, what the potential liability is long term.
I had I had a question on a couple items here. On page 99, there was referenced under commitments and contingencies. In the third paragraph, it's noted that the county has offered to do a project in lieu of paying the fine. These are the fines from solid waste. And this may be a question for the executive, but it had been noted that the county is in the process of settling on a project agreement with MDE. The matter should be settled in fiscal year. I wasn't sure what that project agreement might be, and it may not be your.
I think it might be a good question for Weston.
All right. Morning, Weston. Look at that.
I'll defer that.
Hey, thanks. Phone a friend?
Yeah.
There was a mention on prior issues regarding MDE and potential fines, that an agreement had been made that there would be settling, maybe to avoid making payments on any fines.
Yes.
There would be a project agreement with MDE.
Yeah, so we thought it was in the county's best interest to pursue a project. The state calls it a supplemental environmental project. One of the, I'll say, other projects on Public Works radar at the time was the San Domingo VFW Teen Adult Center property. Older building, blighted, looking at what we could do with that. What we proposed to the state was that instead of any sort of fine, which doesn't really go towards anything locally, why don't we do a project locally and see if they would bite? And essentially the project is the demolition of the building, the removal of all impervious surfaces, and replanting trees on that site. So the total parcel is about 7 acres, about 3.5 of it, so approximately half of it's cleared already, and there was about 3/4 of an acre of impervious. That's rooftop, driveways, there's an old pool and greenhouse. So the plan is to remove all that and return it to natural conditions. The benefits to that is we get that blighted property out, but also it helps us towards our, well, one, addressing this fine, but also the watershed implementation plan, meeting the bay cleanup efforts. And we'll touch on this later in our presentation in the work session later today. But yeah, the San Domingo is the project that we're doing in lieu of, and it works out great. It should help improve water quality, and we are going to claim it in terms of our bay cleanup efforts. So.
Thank you, Weston. He always has an answer. I mean, he's really good about that.
He was expecting that.
Okay. The second part was, I noticed in the, I want to lose my place. I was glad to see that in a lot of the issues that you found under the auditor's communications section, I was glad to see that our internal auditor, Steve Roser, is also appears to be on top of these issues as well. And I was glad to see that, because a lot of times these things are done and you never really find out exactly what the outcomes might be. But I was really pleased to and I mean, some of the concerns that were pointed out were ones that we actually are aware of, thanks to Mr. Roser's efforts. Where does this go from here? Do you check back in 2 months and 3 months? I believe?
Well, normally it would be fine with the audit, or next year's audit, but of course, Steve, being aware of these issues, I'm sure would follow up, throughout the year on these issues. As I mentioned earlier, all these issues are really in process and have been addressed already in some form, some further along than others, but basically, I don't think they were a surprise to most folks when we brought some of these things up, because Steve had indicated some of these previously.
The final page is probably not an issue for an open work session, just because of it may get into the area of a personnel matter.
Right.
But I would like, at some future date, or through some communication, if you could expound upon the employee leave records.
Sure. We can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know what that was. The only other thing was on page 7. I have page 7. For the required communications with those charged with governance.
Yes.
Could you sort of give me an overview of what what you said here?
Um,
And what it,
Are you talking about the corrected and adjusting entries?
yes, uh-huh.
Basically, these are items where we proposed adjusting entries to be made, not that they would not have been found by the finance department or anything, but as part of our audit process, we suggested entries in certain areas, and we had to basically list what those were and identify adjustments that we made versus adjustments that are made by the finance department themselves. So these are basically auditor adjustments.
Ways to maybe tweak the system?
Pardon me?
Recommendations to tweak the system?
No, this is related to, for example, the recording of accrued compensated absences. I mean, there's calculations to do that, but the entry may not have been actually posted at the point of the year-end, by the time the year-end books were closed. So we proposed an adjustment to adjust that balance. It's not really tweaking a system. It's not that these entries would not have been caught. They were just entries that we made based on our audit work that are approved, they're basically approved before they're posted. So, yeah. And beyond that, at the very end is a listing, and you didn't mention this, but there's a listing of past adjustments as well, and these are fairly trivial, if you can take a look at those in the back.
Right.
Those are other adjustments that we found, but they were just so small that we just basically passed on those.
Okay, all right. Any other questions?
I got one.
Joe?
On page 4, John just mentioned page 4 of the communications. The issue with one department not using the accounting system that they should, is that something that's been ongoing, or did they quit using it to keep their leave time? In other words, has this been brought up prior to this?
This is the same comment that we had last year, in our last year audit, so it's been going on for quite a few years now. It just hasn't been fixed yet.
Hasn't been fixed yet, okay.
So you'll update us on that
Yeah.
separate.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? See none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Good job. Mr. Kramer?
Next on your agenda is the submission of the county executive's capital improvements budget. Mr. Culver or Mr. Strasburg?
Good morning.
Good morning.
If council would indulge me for just a minute, I'd like to refer back to Councilman Kilmer's question regarding the actuarial calculations. No, I only have one. On page 112 of this, of the financial statements, you'll see the historic returns. I'll just go through it very quickly. In 2006, the return was 10.6%. 2007, 16.09%. 2008, 2.12. 2009, the height of the recession, negative 15.45. Bounce back in 10 to 12.34. 2011, 19.35. 2012, a loss of about 0.84%. 9.62% to the positive in 13, 13.8% in 14 to the positive, and pretty well flat in the current year. I should also point out that the county really has no influence over that actuarial assumption. That's done by third-party independent actuarial, and they make the assumptions and the valuation of the pension assets and the determination of our required or suggested annual contribution as a result of that actuarial calculation.
Does that answer your question, Councilman Coleman?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, I've noticed it fluctuates wildly year after year, and it's always that 7.5% assumption. So, I mean, my concern is that may not adequately capture what our future liabilities will be. So, I mean, that's just, down the road, we're gonna be facing a surprise on our pensions, and that would be best not to have happen. So.
Yeah, it's an actuarial calculation. That gets very, very technical. I think we're well funded. I think we'll be fine. With that, I'd like to present the council president with this year's CIP. I want to make a few broad-based comments. I'm sure we'll be having a series of work sessions. The first thing I'd like to do is thank our finance director, Leslie Lewis. I leave my cell phone on at night, and it blew up this morning at about 20 after 1. And I thought, I've been getting a series of emails from Joseph Banks about their great sales. And I'm thinking, I'm going to cut those people off. It was Leslie transmitting the final CIP to me. So
That was the collections department of Joseph Banks.
collections department, yeah. So I really want to thank her. You may not be aware, but the calendar was not our friend this year. By charter, we're supposed to deliver the CIP on the third Tuesday of the month, and the first day of December was a Tuesday. So we lost about a week, and this is a very, very laborious process. So she did a really remarkable job. Our total recommended funding for 2017 is $34,519,684. Of that, we're assuming or recommending pay-go of $3,893,279. If you go to your financials again, you'll see that we put $3.6 million back into the general revenue fund. So we believe it makes sense to use that for one-time spending. We think it's an effective use of funds. We're proposing new county debt of $20,300,000. Other sources, principally grants from federal and state government, are $10,326,405. The total debt, assuming the borrowing that we're proposing, is within the charter limits, well within the charter limits, and our principal and interest policy would also be adhered to. The significant new projects that we're undertaking or recommending would be a new building for the Board of Elections. This is in lieu of paying rent. We've been at this now for about 3 years. Given the state's requirements, we're coming in with rentals on the magnitude of $100,000 a year with annual escalations of 3 to 4%. Given the cost of our debt, we believe that we could either rehab or construct a building to suit those needs at about $1.1 million. That would have a lower annual cost than renting, and at the end of 15 years, we'd own the property. So we think that's a better utilization of funds. There's a new Warwick Academic Building that's going to be built. County's portion of that will be $7.3 million. The detention center needs a new roof. We're going to phase that over 3 years, but the total cost is $1.35 million. We're proposing a new public safety building that would house the Sheriff's Department and our EMS, our Emergency Management Services Department. We've also recommended funding the top 4 priority Board of Education projects, including $7.5 million for West Salisbury Elementary School. And with that, happy to answer any questions you may have, but as we all know, we'll have a series of work sessions where we'll go through this in detail.
Any questions from anybody? Yeah, that's good, but we appreciate you presenting it and look forward to the work sessions.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Next on your agenda is Resolution Number 173, 2015, at the request of the County Executive, confirming the appointment of Weston S. Young to the Animal Appeals Board.
Entertain a motion to accept Resolution 173, 2015.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes.
Next is Resolution Number 174, 2015, at the request of the County Executive, confirming the appointment of Stephen E. Miller as Director of the Department of Recreation and Parks and Tourism.
Entertain a motion to accept Resolution 174, 2015.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes. Mr. Miller, would you like to make a comment? Or? You'd have to go to the podium and do it. We're looking forward to this very much, and so I thought it'd be good for the public to see your face and hear what you have to say.
Not much to look at, but appreciate that. I want to thank Mr. Culver and Wayne for the opportunity to serve in this manner. I've been with the county for 6 years in several different capacities, and I can tell you this, from 2009 to this point, I haven't had a day where I have been bored or lacked things to do in the county, and I suspect for as long as I'm allowed to serve in this capacity, that will remain the case. I love the county. I appreciate everything that the department has to do, and I'm excited for our team, Recreation, Parks, Tourism, and Civic Center, as far as the forward steps that we can take. So again, I thank you for the privilege, and I look forward to getting started.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank Pam Olin for having taken the position as acting for so long and did an excellent job in that, and I'm glad to see that you're still on board. That's excellent. You had a comment, Mr. Strasburg?
I just too wanted to thank Pam. She has done just a fantastic job of stepping in the interim period, and it's very, very much appreciated. We are also promoting a couple of people to fill the vacancies. Kristen Guller, who has been our marketing director, will move into Steve's former spot as tourism manager, and Nicole Wheatley, who was Kristen's assistant, is going to move into Kristen's spot as our marketing manager. So we're very pleased to be able to promote three very, very, very talented and hardworking people.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strasburg.
Next is Resolution Number 175, 2015, introduced by the President of the Council. This is to extend the date for voting on Legislative Bill 2015-17, which is the amendments to the National Electrical Code of 2014, with an amendment and to require an applicant to be under the direct supervision of a master electrician. Council may recall that you had a work session with the President of the Board of Electrical Examiners and with our own county staff, which oversees the implementation and enforcement of the electrical code. The law department is still looking into some clarification that was requested that work session. This bill or this resolution will extend the 60-day period in which you have to adopt the bill. It's a housekeeping measure only.
Entertain a motion to accept Resolution 175, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes.
Next is a discussion of proposed amendments to Article 2B. It's been proposed by the owners of the Headquarters Live, and I think there are people here who are interested in that as well as the applicants.
If we could have the owners, if you don't mind. Morning.
Council President, members of the council, this is my first time addressing this board, so I want to thank you for the opportunity to have us here this morning and discuss what is a proposed text amendment to subparagraph 6-401X of Article 2B.
Michael, if you could state your name.
My name, my name is Michael Sullivan. Man to my left is Mr. Joey Gilkerson. He is a 51% owner of Firehouse Entertainment Inc. Previously submitted to the council was a proposed text amendment to subparagraph X3 of Article 2B. The intent of the proposed text amendment is very simple. It would allow Headquarters Live the opportunity to apply for a license permitting the sale of spirits on the premises. The reason for the proposed text amendment is equally as straightforward and even more important. The Headquarters Live project was developed in cooperation with the city of Salisbury. The purpose of the project was not only to serve as an arts and entertainment venue, drawing performances and people to downtown Salisbury that were not typically coming down to downtown Salisbury, and it was an integral part of the downtown revitalization project. Part of the project itself was a focus on community outreach events. As currently structured, Headquarters Live is eligible for a Class D license that would prohibit individuals under the age of 21 from being on the premises ever. Not on specific times, rather, they could never be on the premises. Therefore, in order for the intent of the project, as endeavored by its owners and the city of Salisbury, to remain and actually withstand and become economically sustainable, the sale of spirits is imperative. But in order to maintain the integrity of the project, individuals under the age of 21 must be allowed on the premises, provided that their attendance is regulated and controlled. Before you today is a text amendment that addresses what was once referred to, or still is, the break time license. It was a license crafted specifically for break time. Break time was a pool hall or billiards establishment, and only secondarily was it a restaurant. And as a result, it could not meet the 51-49% food to alcohol sales required in order to sell spirits. What this text amendment would do is it would reduce the requirements, or excuse me, not reduce, it would remove entirely the requirements for a kitchen. Primarily the intent of an operating commercial kitchen is to ensure that there is proper, appropriate, and substantial capital investment in a project. Here, that's not an issue. Over $1 million went into this project. It is a project that is a central focus of the downtown revitalization program. Indeed, the proposed text amendment is supported by the Mayor of Salisbury's office, and I have for you today a letter of support from him. This process began with a letter to the Wycomico County Board of License Commissioners in August of this year. Myself and Mr. Gilkerson were invited to attend a Board of License Commissioners hearing in October, at which we presented the proposed text amendment in front of you. In November, we again presented our proposal to the board. Since then, no decision has been made. Traditionally, the process for amending Article 2B works as follows. The proposed text amendment is delivered and presented to the Wycomico County Board of License Commissioners. They make a decision. That decision is then brought to the attention of the County Council, and the proposed text amendment is brought before the Council for their consideration. Following which, it is sent to the applicable state representative, in which case it could be a delegate, it could be a senator. The 2016 General Assembly session is drawing near, and as a result...
Please, thank you. Sorry.
That's great. And as a result, we felt it imperative to address the council now because we were running out of time. The General Assembly session starts in less than a month. And we need to address this matter before this board. And again, I thank you for having us today. In short, there are 4 reasons for this proposed text amendment. 1, the economic viability is incredibly assisted by the ability to sell spirits on the premises. Moreover, because of the unique, one-of-a-kind aspect of the project, specifically its community outreach efforts, it is equally imperative that individuals under the age of 21 be on the premises, provided their attendance is regulated and controlled. Without this text amendment, Headquarters Live, in order to become economically sustainable, would need to pursue a license creating a 21 and over nightclub establishment. Obviously, that is not something that anyone wants centrally located in the city of Salisbury. And lastly, we've been going at this for now 3 months, and we have gotten opposition along the way. We're, as I said to my client, we are great promoters because it seems like everywhere we go, a lot of people follow us. We're not uncompromisable. Never have we said this is our only offer, our only suggestion. Rather, we have always wanted to engage in a substantive discussion that would allow Headquarters Live to be economically sustainable while keeping its intent to serve as a community forum for people of all ages in downtown Salisbury, city of Salisbury, and Wycomico County at large. Thank you for your attention.
Council questions? Joe?
You said the liquor board had not made a decision, and one of these letters, I believe it came from their attorney, that 2 were not in favor and 1 was.
I believe the letter said that no formal decision was reached, but 2 were in opposition.
Okay, so
If that is the case, I must confess it wasn't necessarily readily conveyed, but be that as it may, if that is their position, that is their position.
was it requested that they send this to the council, or did you send this to the council on your own, bring this to the council at your own request?
I sent it to the council on our own volition.
I've been in this business a long time ago, 10 or 15 years ago, and, well, it's been about 15 years, and it's very, very, very hard to control when you've got people bringing in somebody that's 23 or 24 bringing in somebody that's 18 or 17 to control who has a hold of the liquor. They're either shuffling it around on the table, or they're standing, and as I understand, your facility, your venue does not have tables, or doesn't have many tables. It's more of a festival type situation. So I think it would be very, very, I know what your goal is, and I know you'd like to, but I see it almost as being impossible to be able to control that.
Mark?
As I understand it, other counties allow this sort of thing.
Correct. There is, now, keep in mind that we are proposing to amend a subparagraph in section 6-401. Arts and entertainment venues across the state of Maryland are typically regulated under 6-201, which would be the subparagraph, or excuse me, subsection that regulates restaurants. So for instance, Montgomery County has a special community arts and entertainment venue that regulates the sale of liquor, regulates the individuals that can be on the premises and what times they can be on the premises. And I'll also remind the council that Headquarters Live has been in business now for almost 12 months. This was not a decision that was reached in haste. Since being in business, we have had no calls for police to the premises. Indeed, we requested a report from Salisbury's police department, and none was able to be given to us because there had been no calls. Beers are poured via draft system, wine is poured from the bottle. And heretofore, we have had excellent success policing underage drinking on the premises. I realize that the nature of spirits creates an enhanced issue when it comes to the enforcement of underage drinking, but it still relies on the principle that is already being enforced by its owners.
On the letter from Richard Duvall's office, there's a notation that on the second page, next to the last paragraph, it says that one member of the board was of the opinion that some accommodation should be made in the law in order to promote the downtown business area. I believe that's the amendment that you made. Is that part of the amendment that you made in suggesting that this be allowed only in the downtown area or the Arts and Entertainment District?
Yes, Council President.
But
Excuse me.
my question to you would be, was this one member of the board one of the members that was in opposition, and that amendment maybe changed the outcome of their decision?
I don't know. And the reason why I don't know is because, again, the opposition wasn't necessarily readily conveyed. There wasn't a vote. There wasn't any type of decision rendered before us. So I don't want to hypothesize as to who could be willing to accommodate a downtown plaza regulation. But I do know that as a result of our last hearing in front of the Board of License Commissioners, we developed a text amendment that would create a new subparagraph under 6-401. It would be subparagraph X4. And that would provide for arts and entertainment venues, like the kind established by Headquarters Live, with the same time, age restrictions, except that those venues could only be licensed if they were located in the area defined as the downtown plaza. For whatever reason, and I believe that it had to do with the proximity of churches, the Maryland General Assembly actually codified a definition of the downtown plaza, and that is located in Article 2B, Section 9-223. That definition is put right in the proposed text amendment to create a new license, which I have not so artfully named an arts and entertainment license.
Okay.
I'll wait for you.
No, I don't have.
All right, thank you, too, for coming. I think this is an excellent idea. I really do, on paper. What are your plans to regulate, to police, to prevent minors from drinking alcohol?
I'll go first, but if my answer needs to be supplemented, I'll let him interrupt me. Case in point, recently there was a sold-out show at Headquarters Live. It was a national act. It was an incredible event. For national acts, the shows would be scheduled at such a time so that they would conclude well in advance of 12 a.m. That way, there would never be a situation where the clock would strike midnight, individuals under the age of 21 would have to leave, basically on the honor system, while individuals 21 and over could remain. Indeed, if it was a national show, you could speculate that it would be scheduled from the hours of 7:30 to 11. That way, the show probably won't end at 11 on the dot, but as soon as it ends, the sale of alcohol ceases, people have 45 minutes to vacate the premises, and the premises is closed completely to any patrons by 12 midnight. Now, alternatively, there are smaller acts that perform at Headquarters Live that don't draw large crowds. Typically, only draw crowds that are interested or are of age to drink alcohol. And those would be 21 and over shows only. And during those performances, the establishment would be open until at the very latest 2 a.m.
All right. I've got a lot of experience in this business. Many years as a contract DJ for pretty big nightclubs / restaurants, one in Salisbury, one or two in Ocean City. And I was able to go out and mingle with the crowd. And I met a lot of people that were underage. Some of the restaurants allowed drinking in that part of the building, but when the time changed that they're not supposed to be there, it's hard to move them out. It's hard to miss them. A lot of fake IDs. You ever heard of Tom Brown? He was the inspector for the liquor board. There wasn't a day that went by that he didn't find people with underage, with fake IDs and underage people drinking. It happens a lot, and it's hard to control.
I would assume if they were underage, they'd have armbands, and there would be some distinction.
Yeah, so specifically, that's exactly that. So over 21 gets a specific armband. Under 21, it's kind of industry standard black X's. Any event we would never have an event where we kick out only 21s at midnight. It's either an all ages, an 18+ event, or a 21 up event. The big piece though is staffing. It's having the right people in place, properly trained, and adequate number of them to police the area and to have a presence.
Right, but if I go to buy a mixed drink, set it down, go to the bathroom, and my friends that are younger are with me can pick it up and start drinking.
Yeah, we'll be watching it. As far as guaranteeing it can't happen, I mean, what's the difference between that and potentially drinking at your home? If you're over 21 and supplying alcohol to minors, you can do that 100 different ways without going to headquarters live.
I can appreciate that, but you need a lot of eyes.
At this time, what I'd like to do, there was a second party that wanted to make a couple of comments.
I have a question. Can I?
We're not done with discussions, John. I mean,
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think it's germane,
All right,
really. As a community and outreach forum, what percentage of your business do you actually anticipate will be a community outreach and a forum?
So far, it's been nearly 50-50.
50-50? And what's help me out, Mr. Sullivan. What's the difference between an arts and entertainment and a tavern?
Well, the difference would be that an individual under the age of 21 could actually be on the premises. Right now, in Wycomico County, if you sell spirits, that's the line of demarcation. At no point in time could an individual under the age of 21 be on the premises.
Yeah, sure. Right now in Wycomico County, we have the choice to either be a nightclub or a restaurant if we want to sell spirits. And the whole key
So
to
you're
spirits.
either a bar or a nightclub?
Nightclub or a restaurant.
Or a restaurant.
And to dovetail on your question about what percentage of your business relates to community outreach events, an example I've given before is an example I'll give again, which is PRMC contacted the owners of Headquarters Live to host an event there. During the planning period, it was discovered that spirits could not be sold or imbibed on the premises at all. That completely changed the event, and they decided not to host it there.
And your original business plan, you didn't anticipate that you'd need liquor?
The original business plan, we were landlords. We inherited Headquarters Live
That's
due to a
true.
faulty tenant.
Right.
So we're looking at the options of either bar and nightclub venue or trying to maintain an arts and entertainment atmosphere downtown. Okay. Are there questions that anyone would like to ask now?
Can you go through the, I would call it the penalty process? Say diversion did occur within the facility. What are the penalties? Is it a 3-strike type thing? What is there right now?
I've never been in front of the liquor board for anything like that, but I think that I think it's case by case. Okay. Originally, it's a fine, and maybe you lose your license for a day or two. Then the fine increases, and you lose your license for an extended period. And I would imagine the 3rd strike, you get your license revoked indefinitely.
I've been in front of the board.
Okay.
Now, not my own establishment, client, and I was there for the 3rd strike, and it was punitive. And I feel very confident in the following proposition. If the proposed text amendment were approved and then passed by the General Assembly, a spotlight even larger than the spotlight that has already been shown on Headquarters Live, which, mind you, has been a very unique spotlight. I don't believe there has ever been an establishment that has had this much attention focused on it in its first year of business. The spotlight's going to be even larger. Do I expect that for the first week, month, 6 months, there are going to be enforcement operations dedicated to the underage sale of alcohol at Headquarters Live? Absolutely. And if you don't think that we'll be on watch when it comes to that, then we're not that naive.
And ultimately, violations could result in the failure of the business. I mean, it could, the revocation of the license.
It's something we already face and we're already doing. We already have under 21 and alcohol. We're just talking about a specific kind of alcohol.
Right.
This time, if we could, I know there's 2 comments that are being allowed at the podium for the individuals that are here to represent the organization. Sorry, Mr. Hanna.
That's all right. Frank Hanna, 1522 South Salisbury Boulevard, Salisbury. I believe the county council has two pieces that I gave the administrator, and I think they've passed those out. One of them was the actual hearing on October 12th. And I don't know whether you want me to read that whole thing into the record. Is that necessary?
If you could give us a synopsis, that'd be great.
Okay. I'll do it real quick here then. On October, on October 20th, I believe it was, actually. I think I said the 12th. They've been up 2 or 3 times, so I get a little bit of the dates. The first request that night was to change to allow liquor to be served in a place with less than 50 seats and no food requirements. This would allow a surge of applications for basically a nightclub bar in every shoebox space in the county. It would be impossible to enforce with current staffing, a nightmare for safety, and unfair to all other license holders who have put a lot of money into kitchens, running them, meeting the food to alcohol sales requirement. Now, the second request, which is what's in front of you right now, was for Headquarters Live for a liquor license without a kitchen or a food requirement. Again, this is not fair to all other Class B license holders that would create a nightclub with underage people inside. We are all under the mind frame that the purpose behind ensuring that restaurants serve food when providing liquor is to safeguard against customers becoming over-intoxicated by providing food for consumption while drinking liquor. A consumer's body absorbs the liquor at a slower rate and less likely for intoxication. If the county were to pass such a ridiculous request, it will mean the food to beverage ratio requirement is essentially abolished. The county will no longer be able to hold licensees responsible for making sure they sell more food than liquor. Food is a must when serving alcohol, meaning liquor, and prevents in many circumstances over-intoxication. By deleting the food as a requirement, there would be more DUIs, more alcohol poisoning, more fights, more deaths, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Headquarters Live has virtually become a nightclub without liquor. And this would be passed, it would be open up a can of worms for underage drinking, as well as unfair to competition from all other license holders who have put in kitchens and also meet a 51% food requirement. Now, on that date, these operators opposed that. Brew River, La Roma, Market Street Inn, East Moon, Irish Penny, The Deli, Fratelli's, Booney's, Public House, Pacific Gravity, Sobo's, Lucky Star, Red Roost, Plaza Tapatia, both locations, La Tolteca, The Fountains, Adams Ribs, Black Diamond, Old West, The Warehouse, Ginger House, Backstreet Grill. Now, that was the one piece I gave you. And as you found out tonight, the board voted 2-1 to eventually oppose that. The one vote, I think maybe I can clear that up, is Chris Eccleston, who is Gil Skilkerson's partner, which is, rightfully so. I don't blame him for supporting it, but that was the one maybe positive comment came from him. The other board members opposed it vehemently. The other piece that I gave you, it's the second piece I gave you, and your own county liquor board turned this down. I think they're your experts. That's who the council depends on to advise you. They're the ones that know what the right type of license is for the right type of venue. Headquarters Live has the right type of license, a beer and wine license. It gives their customers alcohol, beer and wine. It lets them have the shows there, and lets them have all ages in there without any problem. Now, if they want to go to a nightclub license, they can do that right now and get liquor. They don't want to do that because they want that underage crowd coming in there. And the reason all these operators are here is because if you get those underage crowds in there, especially get a few of those cute girls in there that are underage, and then all of a sudden all the other operators are going, where do all my customers go? They're over at Headquarters Live because they're underage girls in there. I mean, this isn't neurosurgery. This is pretty simple stuff. So let me continue on this other piece. Now, Mr. Sullivan, he'll tell you that they have a perfect safety record. They've not added the gasoline yet to the fire. The gasoline is the alcohol, the hard spirits. You add that late at night in an under 21 crowd, and as you know, people are going to walk off. They're going to set their drinks down. It's going to be impossible to manage. In their own website, they show their capacity for 1,380 people. Now think about this. They've got the right license, beer and wine. It's perfect for that type of venue. That's why your your liquor board are the experts. They've been doing it a long time. They know what license is right for what venue. You've got one coming up right now near the university, beer and wine. The university doesn't want liquor over there. They just don't want it. So that was my point. Your county, your experts, they've told you what they think, and the tradition has always been that when the county liquor board rules, whether if they back legislation, then fine. Then it goes to Annapolis, but if they don't back it, the tradition is that nobody in Annapolis even wants to hear about it. They don't want it. So, you add liquor to it, you got problems. Rody Joe's 2 weeks ago, huge fight. That's just with liquor, and I don't know if they have 21 under there. I don't think they do. They shouldn't, but I'm not sure. But same management. They're all involved. So. Think about that, 1,380 people. I mean, there's no way to manage it. You can't do it. You just can't do it. It's not that they've got the right license. I'm not sure why they keep pushing it when the liquor board has told them, and they can do everything they want to do, and the beer and wine costs are really no different than the liquor costs. If that's going to be the answer to making money or not making money, I'm afraid. I've been in the business for 40 years. Graduated with a restaurant hotel degree, and I'm going to tell you, that's not going to make the difference between making. But I'll tell you what does make a difference. If you can drive, if you can put gasoline in headquarters, if you can throw that gasoline in there, get underage girls in there, whew, now that's a combination you can make money. You can mix an illegal with legal, and when there's something illegal going on, sometimes it draws the wrong crowd. It'll draw drugs, it'll draw underage drinking, and headquarters will no longer be that kind of pristine venue that Mr. Sullivan describes. It'll go downhill so fast it'll make your head spin. So, and in fairness to these guys back here, and I'll let them, some of them do want to get up and talk, but I've probably gone on too long here. But I had one other piece, and I'll give it to you so you have it. I'll just give you one other piece, and it's from John Tafer, who's an expert on bars. He's the premier expert in the country on bars. And he talks about the marking. He talks about it in a recent episode on TV. He talks about bars marking, the black mark to kind of control it, or the band. They're in there washing it off. I mean, he said it's the worst example of why you don't let underage kids around heavy alcohol. It's the worst. It's the worst example. They got in this particular example, he showed a venue with security around, and they had plants in there of underage people in a big club like this. And in the series, he said it's one of the lowest points a bar owner can reach to, because you're exposing them to a lot of danger. I'm going to give you that piece so you can see it. And I don't think Mr. Cannon wants me to answer any questions, but I certainly would love to.
Well, is there another person who's going to make a presentation? We're allowing two presentations.
Quite a few guys are here. I don't know how many you want to hear from.
Just
they're upset, I can tell you that.
We have yours and one more.
Right.
Morning.
Good morning, council members. How are you?
If you could state your name, please, and association.
Ulysses Triantis, and I'm the general manager of the Fountains. What Frank Hanna said today...
Get closer to that.
Okay. What Mr. Hanna said today makes a lot of sense. And he said a lot of things that I would have said today, so I'm going to keep it very short. One of the other things I want to say today is what Mr. Holloway said based on his experience. And one of the things that he said makes a lot of sense as well. And that is exactly the problem. And that is mixing over 21 with under 21. It doesn't make any sense. What Headquarters Live is proposing is, we heard it, an honor system. It doesn't make any sense. Nobody's going to honor the system. When that 12 o'clock comes along and there's an announcement made, and I don't know how they're going to make the announcement, everybody under 21 has to leave. The under 21s are going to run around like cockroaches, hiding in every crevice in that restaurant that they can find, under bar tables, in bathrooms, you name it. They're never going to be able to control it. Even armbands, if you have armbands, if you're wearing long sleeves, you can't tell whether somebody's wearing a long sleeve or not. Bartenders, if their occupancy is 1,300 people, if you have 1,300 people in there, even 500 people in there, the bartenders aren't going to be able to watch. They're not going to know. They're never going to know who's over 21 or under 21. They're not going to ask. It's a sale. They're going to make the sale. They're busy. Their mind is all over the place. This legislation being proposed is reckless. It's reckless. It's not only being proposed recklessly, but it would be reckless to pass this legislation or even agree with this legislation. We have to look at the cost versus the benefit of this legislation. The only benefit I see here is the benefit of Headquarters Live. That's it. There's no other benefit. In my personal opinion, not only as a lawyer, but as a business operator, a restaurant business operator, I don't think the liability is worth the benefit. I don't see any increased tax benefit. I don't think it's going to promote a better environment downtown. Again, the only benefit here is to one entity. Headquarters Live is not asking for us to open up the doors so that we can purchase liquor from different vendors and perhaps lower the cost, which is something I'd like to propose one day. And I think that that would benefit each and every one of these restaurant owners back here. But that's not what Headquarters Live is asking today. They're asking you to do something to help them out only. I was here that day when they sat in front of you and they were asking you for a license. Well, I was here one day in front of the liquor board when they were asking for a license. And they were saying they were going to have, different kinds of things, ballet recitals. They even brought a lady here that was going to do ballet recitals. I don't know if they did ballet recitals, but that was something they wanted to do. Another thing they did was they brought in some guy from Delaware that said he could bring big bands and this and that and blah, blah, blah. I was sitting in that meeting, and I was sitting in the back, and I was thinking to myself, it's just not going to work. Certainly with a beer and wine license, it's not going to work. And if you put a beer, wine, liquor license, it's going to be even worse, especially if it's over 21, under 21, because I knew what they were trying to do. All this is going to do is create more fights, it's going to create more crimes, it's going to create more DUIs. The whole purpose of food is to absorb the alcohol content in the body. And if you have no food, you're going to have people walking out of that place extremely intoxicated. I heard Headquarters Live say all eyes will be watching. There'll be an honor system. I haven't heard anything said today that will ensure these members or anybody in this room that the granting of a liquor license of this type will work. What Headquarters Live is trying to do today, and I'll finish with this, is they're trying to circumvent having to put in a kitchen, which could cost up to $1 million. They're trying to circumvent having to hire chefs and cooks. They're trying to circumvent higher payroll. We all have that problem. We all have high payrolls. We have to keep chefs. When we serve liquor, we have to keep those cooks in the restaurant. We have to keep the ovens running, the grills running, everything running. But what they're trying to do is circumvent the law in the least expensive way possible. And that is, we don't want to have a kitchen. We want to be able to serve liquor and beer and wine all night long. And we don't want to have to pay cooks. We don't want to have to keep our grills or ovens on. We don't want more electricity costs, so forth and so on. Again, Mr. Holloway, what you said today was right on target, and I asked this board not to pass this type of legislation. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council questions, comments?
Well, just to clarify, we're not being, I mean, we're just being asked to give our assent to something that's going to Annapolis, correct? I mean, this is not, this is not anything that we're not passing anything to change the law. We're just seeing whether the local governing body here.
Yeah, this is just an
Yeah.
informative session so that the council, for the council, to bring it to the council's attention, not necessarily asking for a consensus today on this.
Yeah, we're not making a decision today.
Right.
None is sought, mind you.
Excuse me?
No decision today is being requested.
Right.
It's not our decision anyway.
Correct.
No, we're not saying it's our decision. It's our decision as to whether or not we want to issue a letter of support.
That's correct.
That's, we're not specifically involved in with any part of the article's amendment itself.
I was just saying, I wish I had more information sooner because I really appreciate what they want to do, and then I'm listening to this side over there, and it sounds like it's a risky business. And I know you guys are very successful at what you do over there, but it's scary.
We do. I mean, we have that information now. Some of it has just come in, so we'll have a chance to review it. Sometimes I wonder. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to respond to a
It's
few
fine.
things.
Go ahead.
Now time. So first and foremost, one of the things brought up, I'll just kind of go in order here. There'll never be an event where we go from 18 plus to 21 over. We'll never try to kick out just the 18 to 20 year olds. It'll either be an 18 plus event or a 21 plus event. Our goal here is not circumventing a kitchen, and it's not because there's $1 million Cadillac kitchen out there. It's because we want to promote other establishments downtown. We very well could put in a $20,000 kitchen on top of our $1 million building and put a $10 an hour chef in there and serve pizzas. We could check that box, but that's not what our goal is for the space. And one question I have for the other restaurateurs is, what time do your kitchens close? I mean, my experience is the kitchens at all these other establishments are closing at 11 o'clock anyhow, maybe midnight. We're talking about having to have food to soak up the alcohol, and I don't know what you guys' experiences are, but where it's busy, where there's a lot of alcohol served, is that 12 to 2 a.m. slot, and there's no food at any of these establishments anyhow other than Brody Joe's. The other thing that came up a couple of times is it was represented as though the board voted this down and that you should lean on your experts. The first sentence on the second page of what they wrote is that the board did not make a formal decision. We've sat in plenty of these meetings and they went back and forth. I think it's even bold to hint that they hinted towards opposition, which in the second hearing we went to was not the case at all. They were offering suggestions and really engaging in some suggestions as to what to do here. So the liquor board has not voted this down by any means. The letter states that we're not the only place that doesn't have alcohol during food during all times that alcohol is being served. They're painting a picture of us having a nightclub with 18-year-olds, which is not the case at all. We don't want to go that late. We don't want to be in the nightclub scene with 18-year-olds. The bigger focus for us is that we won't be able to do, if we have economic viability in 21-plus events in the evening, we can't do Remedy Church Christmas service during the day. We can't do AMP Studios where they have like the School of Rock Kids band there. We can't do the United Way fundraisers. We can't do the American Cancer Society. We can't do any of those things. We can't do weddings. We can't do PRMC parties. We can't do any of those things that aren't in peak bar hours. So it's not white and black, we're a nightclub wanting kids. We want to be able to do community functions specifically during non-peak bar hours and also have the ability to have a concert that's economically viable.
Did you say that your venues would be separate, that you would have one event that would be 18 and under, and then you would have a separate event that would be 21?
18 and up, yes.
Right.
And Council President, if I might make one remark in closing. If you don't believe our statements about that, about our position and strategy that we will put in place at the establishment, the last line of the proposed text amendment says, the board may adopt regulations to carry out this paragraph. For me, it seems like a very clear and foreseeable regulation would be to prohibit individuals under the age of 21 being on the premises for a 21 and over show. But they could say, if it's a 21 and over show, at no point in time will individuals under the age of 21 ever be allowed on the premises that day. The text amendment is open for regulatory enforcement. And that is the purpose of such a text amendment, is to lean on your experts to enforce the legislation.
Maybe I'm confused. What do you mean by 21 and only over show? I mean, is the content of the show only...
If it's a later show, perhaps.
A what?
A later show or targeted towards a an older crowd, it could be a 21 and over event.
So what would qualify as a 21 and over?
Case by case scenario. Historically, we've done 21 plus events that were more DJ and type related. And talking to the local licensing body, they think that we should not be able to have DJs at all, which we wouldn't do those kind of events, but more brash or I guess adult content.
What kind of adult content shows are you planning on having?
Well, not like that.
I really want to know. I mean, we're discussing
a lot
this.
of
I'd like
cussing,
to-
vulgar words, the content, their music, those kind of things.
Anything else other than cussing and vulgarity?
No.
No. Okay.
Sometimes I wonder as to the genesis of it all. If you have someone that opens a restaurant, usually it's because they want to open a restaurant, and the bar actually complements the restaurant for additional revenue stream. I'm curious as to how many restaurants actually decided they wanted to initially be a bar or a tavern and became a restaurant simply because the law demanded that. You guys don't want to be in the restaurant business.
I can tell you from personal experience, there's only one in the history of Wycomico County, and it was just this past July. Rody Joe's switched from a Class D license to a Class B. And that was a very, very difficult process. That took 2 years of slowly building demand for food. And ultimately, the board gave them a shot, and since then, they've had record weekends because they are now open to all ages.
What is a Class B?
Class B is your typical restaurant license. It requires that at least 51% of your gross sales be attributable to sales of food, so long as you sell spirits on the premises.
I would like to, I would like to see, I've been to the events, I'd like to see Firehouse, continue as, as with the contribution as far as arts and entertainment to the local community. I see it as complementing the downtown area and the restaurant business, whereas maybe someone will not be able to get food at Firehouse, but they may go to a restaurant downtown and eat simply because they want to go to your venue, but they wanted to eat first. And I see that as almost complementary.
That's part of the vision of it, to fit into the whole downtown scape, not just be a standalone entity as a restaurant and kind of a one-stop shop.
I also see that, as was mentioned before, you have well over $1 million in this project, and you're talking about going out on a limb to expand your license, and I think you have to understand that you are at risk. You are putting yourself at risk. Just as Mr. Sullivan said, where you are, there's going to be huge oversight. But the regulatory and the control measures are in place in the county, and I think it's up to us to depend on that to keep the community safe. And as responsible owners, I think that's the primary function here: is who are the owners, what do they represent? Do we feel that they would have a reputable establishment? And I think that in your last year, you have proven what your position is. As you said before, you didn't even get into this for arts and entertainment. It sort of fell in your lap, and I think you've developed it very well over the last year. Councilman Hawley?
Yeah, I see Mr. Hanna's back up. I've got a question to ask you, Mr.
Sure.
Hanna. When you started your statement, you made a comment about one of the board members being in business with this gentleman or something?
Mr. Eccleston took Leo McNeil's place, and he's involved with Gillis Gilkerson in the, he's a tenant in their buildings. He's involved in the construction business, and I'm assuming, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, that they have some type of relationship. He's the only one that spoke in any kind of positive manner the night I was there. And somebody pushed him up to get him on that board, and I don't know who that might be, but, can I say something else here?
If you make it quick, Mr., because
okay.
you understand initially when we discussed.
Yeah. But when you hear things that aren't right, when they came and put this venue in front of everybody, it was to support downtown. Everybody was going to get all these meals before and after. Everybody was going to get all the hard liquor sales at the other places because they weren't going to have hard liquor. Okay? That's number one. Buck Cherry, which was there on a Monday night, Rob Mulford's back here from Market Street Inn. He staffed, loaded up, got ready for it, sold out concert. He said, Frank, not one customer came through my door. Not one. Not before, not after. He said it was embarrassing. He said it was really disappointing. But in addition to that, the 50-50 on the ballet and the hip hop. Well, I don't see a 50-50.
If you could close, because I don't want to get into a back and forth on
here's the
issues
type
here.
of stuff. Nappy Roots, Headstrong, Crazy Bitch. These are groups that are coming. Awake at Last, DJ Rob C, Bumpin' Uglies. This coming Friday night. There's a bar crawl. The last spot, my understanding is Headquarters Live. Well, suppose they had that license right now. The last spot, roll in there, and all the cute girls are there that are 17, 18, 19 years old.
1+ event.
You know where they'll be. It's unfair competition for all these operators. Nightclub. Here's the fellow from the warehouse is right back here. They're hurting him right now because they get under 21 in there, but there's nothing he can do about it. But he can do something about it if they try to get this legislation up to Annapolis. And never so far has Annapolis backed something that the liquor board didn't back.
Thank you, Mr. Hanna. Any other comments?
Can I make one more?
Certainly, Mr. Councilman Hall.
I have concern that your text amendment's too broad. When you made reference to the break time license, Mr. Sullivan, you said that this was the only operation ever to possess the break time license. I think that if you go ahead with the text amendment as it is presented, that you'll open up the entire county to a very, very vague model. Now, your model, I think, is very structured, or as you've presented it. You've made a commitment saying that you're going to be a community outreach forum, and but if this text amendment, as presented, goes forward, I think that you'll find that, as Mr. Hanna and the other restaurateurs have explained, that this is going to open up a very strong bar, tavern, venues that will call themselves arts and entertainment. I think you need to restrict it and make it more like a break time type of license where you can be unique. And I don't think if you forward this as it is, it will become a burden in our county.
That is a suggestion and comment that has been brought to our attention on several occasions. And that is indeed the impetus for what I refer to as the alternate text amendment, which creates a license with the same requirements, identical requirements as those set forth in X3. But it limits the geographic scope to an arts and entertainment venue license to the downtown plaza, which will therefore assuage any fears that this would be a type of venue that would sprout up all over the place without the type of commitment, financial backing, and even moreover, community spotlight that the owners of Headquarters Live have on them at all times.
Thank you.
The license process, do you go back annually to renew the license? How does it work?
You don't go in front of the board annually. You just, fee, you renew.
What might the board consider some type of, this could be, might the board consider a temporary license, like a one-year license, as sort of a probationary type period?
They would have to change the law first.
I mean, I'm suggesting they might recommend
Yes.
that.
Yeah, but it would have to be a change in law, because what is clear is that for the sale of spirits, there's two options for Headquarters Live and two options. Either they don't sell them and they maintain themselves as a forum for community outreach, or they sell them and they are 21 and over. Which is third option. They put on a revocation.
Still doesn't meet the requirements. The license doesn't recognize live performing art as entertainment. Specifically says it is not. Actually, it's got to be pool tables.
if you put in a kitchen, you would meet the same requirements that the rest of the.
No, actually, we wouldn't,
We
because
would
we,
sell 50%, 51% food.
Yeah, you'd have to sell 51% food. You'd have to meet the
Then you're
same
a restaurant.
requirements that the rest of the restaurant owners would.
Then you're a restaurant, though.
Any other council questions? Not entertaining.
We're
not entertaining more input. I'm sorry. I was very specific. It's very
I understand
unusual.
that, but I want to
It's
come
very
from a point of
unusual,
view
and
where I'm
we-
the only Class D liquor license holder that can retort any of these comments.
I appreciate that. If you have it in writing, that would be great. We'd be
I can
very
submit it in
anxious
writing.
to see that. But what I'm trying to do is limit debate during the meeting.
Okay.
Normally, in a work session, you don't have exchange of opinions between each other. Normally, we hear out what the presenters have to say. I allowed for 2 comments as an exception. I'm going to stay with that just in the benefit of time and everyone else who's here tonight, okay? But honestly, we would like to see your report. If you want to give that to us in
Absolutely.
writing, we'd love to hear it, okay? Thank you very much.
And there's also the public comment form at the end of our meeting.
That's true,
Anyone
too.
that
There are
wants to
public
stick around.
comments at the end of the meeting as well, if you'd like. Any other questions? All right, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
We look forward to your comments and suggestions.
Thank you.
Good luck.
The next item before the county council is also a presentation, this from the Liquor Control Board, a proposed text amendment to Article 2B as well.
How you doing? Nice to see you.
Good morning.
Morning.
How was everybody?
Being we're talking about liquor, let's keep on.
I wanted to make one comment. The gentleman that just stood up, did you hear what Councilman Kilmer's suggestion was? There is a public comments period at the end of the meeting. Okay? Thank you.
Hey, Vic.
Okay. Good to see you.
Gentlemen, I'm handing out, I'm Victor Laws, the attorney for the Wycomico County Liquor Control Board, which maintains the county dispensaries, and I'm passing out a revision to the amendment. I think it's, I don't know if you have this latest
Thank you very
version,
much.
which puts a little more limits on the quantities. Okay. And your agenda says 5-205 is the section being amended, but it's actually 15-205 of Article 2B. Of course, the members of the board are here, Bob Holloway being the chairman, Pete Richardson, Don Ewald, and the general manager of the dispensary, Justin Collis, down at the end there. What this would do, unless you want to hear from some of the board members first, I'll just
Your
basically go through it. The current law already allows wine tastings to be held by the liquor board. This would add liquor tastings to the law. Currently, there's a 1 ounce limit per brand on a wine tasting, but there's no overall limit. So this would expand the law in some respects, and it would narrow the law in other respects. It would expand it in the respect of allowing liquor to be samplings, tastings and samplings events could be held at the dispensaries and could include liquor as well as wine, but it would reduce the overall limit. It would put an overall limit on wine of 5 ounces, 1 ounce at a time, and 2.5 ounces of liquor, 1/2 ounce at a time. It would continue the current limitation that there can't be more than 6 bottles open at any time, and would allow the dispensary to hold these events up to 26 times a year or every 2 weeks. But except for those changes, it would continue the current law that allows these tasting and sampling events.
First of all, I want to thank you all for changing it from 5 to 2.5. That was causing a little heartburn there. In the TAMS class, do they still call it TAMS, the alcohol classes?
TAMS or tips.
Yeah, tips or whatever. What I remember, it's been probably 25 years ago since I took one of those classes, but what I remember, and as was mentioned here today in our prior mention about food, I was wondering if you were planning on having snacks when you did these tastings, like potato chips, maybe wings, or you know,
Generally-
Doritos or something like that?
Generally, at the wine tastings, they'll bring a cheese wheel or crackers,
Uh-huh.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
We're not.
That's
in the
important with
business
the
of-
liquor, I think. That's the only thing I would think would be a good idea. I'm glad you cut it back, and other than that, you know, people will get off work. What time of day do you have these?
Generally, wine tastings, that sort of thing would be Friday afternoons. Everybody has a paycheck.
Yeah.
You know, they're off work, it's 5 o'clock. That's sort of,
Yeah.
say 5 to 7.
So if somebody gets off work and they haven't had dinner, they stop by, it'd be nice if they had wings or chips or cheese wheel or something that would help absorb. The lady that does the TAMS classes, or I think she still does them, Christine, who's the manager of the Purple Moose in Ocean City, she had a big rundown on the kinds of food that absorb liquor the best. That might be something that would, other than that, I'm okay with it.
Do you ever see a combination of a wine and liquor tasting at the same time, or would it be either or?
I wouldn't think so. You would have two competing companies in the building
Okay.
at the same time.
Okay.
Because I noticed that on the first draft, it said, in the second draft, we'll just go with that, change it to of wine or half ounce of liquor. So I thought, you're tasting wine, you're not allowed to taste liquor, but you're saying they're two completely separate events.
Yes.
And we do have representatives from the Sheriff's Department. They did want to speak on, initially because of the 5-ounce issue. There was concern coming from the Sheriff's Department. Did you still want to make a presentation, Tim? Sure. Okay, yes, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'm Lieutenant Tim Robinson with the Sheriff's Office, and I was asked to come speak here on behalf of Sheriff Mike Lewis. We did have some concern when it was first brought up about the 5 ounces of liquor that would be offered based on our understanding, and my understanding specifically of what it would do to the human body, the physiology of alcohol, of which I've studied extensively through classes certified by the State Intoxicology Program here in the state of Maryland. 2 ounces, or actually 1.5 ounces of liquor, is that what you're proposing? Roughly, or 2.5 ounces of liquor is what's going to, so I'm going to use the argument that it's roughly about 2 shots. That there is a potential, and I'm going to use that as a slang term, 2 shots of liquor. There is a potential for somebody to possibly be under the influence after 2 shots, depending on many factors of whether, how much food they have in their stomach, their body makeup, whether they're male or female. So that is something that I wanted to offer on behalf of Sheriff Lewis.
All right, thank you, Lieutenant. Appreciate it. In changing to this different amount and the testing of liquor, does that change the liability at all? Any perception of liability on the part of the liquor dispensary?
Not that we know of.
Such as, well, you served this guy, he went out and he had an accident. I just don't know whether or not there are
Maryland
any.
has never recognized host liability, as far as I know. There's
Okay.
always the potential that a case comes up. Of course, this is a governmental entity too, so I think that would be a
Yes.
difficult case.
Okay.
Sovereign immunity. But it is similar to what other counties have. It's identical to the law in Carroll County, for instance, and it's similar to several other counties that have expanded to allow liquor tasting events. Justin actually has a bottle with him that shows what 2.5 ounces looks like, if you're interested.
It's not liquor.
That's,
It looks like that's half.
Toilet bowl
half the
cleaner.
pot, right?
Yeah, that
We
was
got
the,
5
that was the
also.
5. We saw that,
Wow.
decided that was a little aggressive.
so that would be the
Right.
max. And as the deputy attests, I mean, that's the maximum. That's not, it's not gonna be like any customer out there is gonna get that size serving. That's gonna be the top.
That's the wine serving, that's the liquor serving.
Okay. Any other council?
Just one question. Earlier, we talked about regulating people and how much they drink or if they drink or not. How are we going to do this? Are we going to prevent minors from drinking? How are you going to know if they drank just 2.5 ounces?
You mean at the tasting?
Yes.
As far as, well, first of all, they're gonna be carded.
You're gonna be what? I'm sorry.
They're gonna be
ID.
carded. They're gonna be ID.
Oh, yeah.
And the person who is going to be conducting the tasting
not only is it their responsibility to determine that that person has had one sample of each of these 3 bottles that's open and they are now no longer allowed to get back in line, our employees are instructed to stay on top of that as well, even though it's not our tasting.
So if you give me a serving and I walk away and take a sip of it, don't like it, I can give it to somebody else? Or do I have to drink it in front of you?
It's consumed right there at the table in front of the representative.
Okay, good, thank you.
How many people do you normally have at a wine tasting? In the room at one time, maybe?
It depends on how hard I guess you would say that the salesman works the floor.
Uh-huh.
You know, if he pulls you over to the table and that wasn't what you were there for, he can increase that volume. I would say no more than maybe 30, 40 is
So
all
it's
I've ever
a
seen.
manageable amount?
Oh, there's not a line out the door.
Okay.
They're coming in there for whatever they were going to shop for today anyway. And then you just take the opportunity to introduce them to a new product, most of the time a higher end product, you know, that they may not take the chance on because of its retail shelf price.
Any other questions? No. I mean, I thought Councilman Dodd had a very good question. I mean, how do you know when someone's had 2.5?
I think it's the responsibility of the person in charge of tasting to keep track, and that we've seen that person 3 times, now 4 times. Time to cut him off.
When they start walking.
Yeah, when they start walking.
You could also do tickets or something. I mean, there are other things.
Yeah, you can do handouts.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there are ways to control it. It's interesting that the law now doesn't have that limit. It has how many from each brand, but it has no overall limit. So we're actually, this is in favor of temperance a little bit.
Any other comments?
They're looking for a.
What are you looking for? Sir?
If you'll endorse it, it'll give us the opportunity to take it to the state delegates and senators so that we can pursue it at the state level. Your only role is recommendation. You don't pass liquor laws.
Right. You are agree to serve food or snacks.
Absolutely. A side note, Lou Berman in the comptroller's office is not, he's in favor. He said, I have no problem with it. He said, just give me lemons.
He likes to drink. Council, all those in favor of a letter of support, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you.
Very much,
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
That was easy.
Okay. Did I miss it?
Thanks, Tim. Mr. Roser, how are you? Good morning.
Fine, thank you, sir.
Still morning? Yes, we're still there. You have a resolution you'd like to present for the council?
Yes, sir, I do. Mr. President, council members, Mr. Culver, the Office of the Internal Auditor performed a study of county overtime practices, and I refer you to the auditor's report dated December 9, 2015. The objectives of the audit were to review overtime policies currently in effect, develop baselines for future evaluations, evaluate adherence to policies and procedures currently in effect. The scope was open-ended and included interviews, data analysis, and document reviews. We discovered no statistically significant trending over the test period, which was FY 2009 to FY 2015. We looked at avoidance and approval. Overtime avoidance, according to Human Resources, is driven by budget constraints. We recommend that council analyze budgeted overtime during the budget process as a matter of course, and this office will be glad to assist in that effort. We also commented on the Fair Labor Standards Act, 40 versus 171-hour overtime calculation, and high-end recipients. Additionally, we would like to point out that new proposed federal regulations might have an overtime budgeting effect, and we commented on that as well. And that is respectfully submitted, Steve Roser, CPA, and I will be glad to address any questions you may have.
Any questions from council? Seeing none. All those in favor of Resolution 176, 2015, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Roser. Harris.
Good morning. Good morning.
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 Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, December 15th, 2015, commencing at 10:30 a.m. in the council chambers of the Government Office Building, Salisbury, Maryland, in conformity with Section 311D of the Charter of Wycomico County, on the following bill, which was introduced for consideration at a legislative session of said county for the year 2015. The following bill may be called for final reading and consideration commencing immediately after the aforesaid public hearing. 2015-16, an act to amend the Wycomico County Personnel Manual, Chapter 15, entitled Leave Benefits and Holidays, Section 1513, entitled Other Paid Leave, to allow administrative leave in the event of a county executive declared emergency. Add a new section, 1518, entitled Liberal Leave, allowing non-essential employees to use accrued paid leave except sick leave under certain emergency conditions without penalty, and to amend Section 2701, entitled Definitions, to add essential employees. If the foregoing bill number 2015-16 is enacted, it will take effect 60 days from the date it became law, subject to the referendum provisions of the Charter of Wycomico County, Maryland.
Hey, Ms. Harris. At this time, we open the floor to the public hearing on Legislative Bill 2015-16. If you'd like to make a comment, please go to the podium and state your name and association. That concludes the public hearing. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt Legislative Bill 2015-16.
So moved.
Second? Second. Roll call. We'll start with Councilman Dodd.
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Legislative Bill 2015-16 passes. Thank you, Ms. Harris. Council comments.
Council comments. I think it was on the 6th, the Salisbury Christmas Parade was held by the Salisbury JCs. I think they did an excellent job. It was a great parade, and I think most of the council members and the county executive participated. It was a great time. Last week, we also attended the Maryland Association of Counties Winter Conference held at the Hyatt Regency. A lot of good classes. The theme was dedicated to public safety, so we learned a lot. Some of the issues and concerns were about marijuana. They had several sessions on that, body cameras, and it was a good networking opportunity. Also had the quarterly legislative breakfast that was held this past Saturday, and most of our Wycomico County delegation was there. I think did a lot to move this county forward, a lot of discussion, so hopefully things will work in our benefit for the upcoming General Assembly session. One of the things we talked about, and I think we talked about it the most, was that topic on sprinklers. So hopefully we'll be able to work that and resolve that, and I thank the County Executive, Bob Culver, for having that legislative breakfast. Thank you. And I would like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays, and thank you very much for attending.
Thank you, Councilman Dodd. Councilman Holloway?
You got anything? Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming today. We had quite a crowd. John knows how to pack them in.
With the agenda?
Yeah, with the agenda.
We'll have to charge admission, Joe.
Yeah, I know. We could reduce our budget. Anyway, I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and a safe and happy Christmas. Drive carefully, and get ready for cold weather. Unfortunately, El Nino's leaving us. Take care.
Councilman Davis?
I know it hadn't taken place, but I see some of the people that are here for the proposed chicken houses. I don't know if you looked at the agenda. The general session will take place at 1 o'clock after lunch. I don't know if they would be able to speak then.
We were just discussing that as to whether we might change the agenda a bit and open it up for public comments. If they might have some type of comments to make, I would suggest that they could do that beforehand.
Yeah, but maybe we'll have other people showing up in time for it.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I have to apologize, gentlemen, because I went to council comments before public comments. So let's finish this and we'll go to public comments. Thank you.
You guys, if
Thank
you want to
Council.
stick around, it'd be fine. And like the others, I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's.
Council comments? Councilman Hall?
On December 5th, we did a soft or a media event at the Wycomico Salisbury Ocean City Airport where we cut the ribbon for the rehab of $8.9 million rehab of a runway. The majority of that $8.9 million was federal money, state money. A very small portion came from the airport itself, and it was part of the enterprise account, so actually there was no county money that went into it. It's all in an effort to bring our airport back to the prominence that we'd like it to be and see it be in the future. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hall. Any other council comments? Under presidential comments, I would just simply like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays as well. Recognize Vice President of the City Council, Laura Mitchell, is here today. I know Delegate Carl Anderton was here earlier, didn't get a chance to introduce him. That being said, I would now open the floor for public comments. What Councilman Davis was explaining earlier was that we have two work sessions, one on the watershed implementation plan, one on the comprehensive plan, before we even get into the discussion on the mega farm poultry operations. So it's going to be a bit of a wait. That's probably going to be more in the line of 1 to 1:30 when we actually get to the issue on the chicken houses. If there are any,
Well, I mean, we could move it up to, I mean, if people are here for that.
May I make
But
a
maybe
suggestion?
not everybody's.
Not everyone's here.
Right.
May I make a suggestion, Mr. President? If you were to allow those who are here for that subject to make the comments and then still hold the session at the time that it's shown in the agenda, that way all the bases would be covered.
Well,
thank you, Mr. Kramer.
well, there's also no time in the agenda shown for it.
It shows after lunch.
If I could make one comment, where I was heading was that if you'd like, during public comments, which is now, you could certainly state your position if you came here to even state your position or whether or not you came to listen. But if you wanted to speak in reference to the chicken houses issue, this would be the time to do that. During the work session, there is no input from the public as a whole. We'll just simply be meeting with Mr. Lennox and those parties on the agenda, okay? So if that's what your concern is, you would want to speak now. If you do want to stay for the chicken houses, it would probably be after lunch, and we certainly could consider moving it up in the agenda as suggested. Yes, sir. Good to see you.
Just a quick question.
State your name if you could in association. Thank you.
Ryan Miller, own a few establishments in Salisbury, one being the deli, Last Call Liquors, and originally opened Monkey Barrel, which is now the warehouse, 12 years ago. Just a quick question. When I make comments on the public record, are you able to ask questions for me to answer as well, or is it just my comments?
It is your comments. Thank you.
All right. With that being said, I would prefer to then submit it in writing. I just wanted to answer any possible questions coming from a Class D liquor license holder, also a restaurant liquor license holder, and a liquor store in this county liquor license holder. So I know every angle of it, and I've been doing it for 12 years. But I will submit my comments in writing, and then hopefully be able to answer anything that you guys have on those questions.
We could use your input.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The floor is open for public comments. Any other public comments at this time?
My name is Barry Johansson, and I'm representing the Wycomico Environmental Trust. I think the news of the chicken mega farm near Naylor Mill Road kind of caught us by surprise. We weren't aware. But there's I'm just going to urge the council to be very careful, and I understand that it's complicated with the zoning regulations, but to be very careful because of the location of the Paleo Channel and the wellhead protection area. Water resource element is part of the comprehensive plan, I believe, and that needs to be considered too. So I just wanted to say that now. Of course, I would prefer to be able to talk as it's being discussed, but I understand that this is a different process. So please be very careful. There's a lot at stake for this county. Anytime we're talking about water, I think it was the weekend edition of the USA Today just had a discussion about the loss of aquifers and nationally. and worldwide. And we're very fortunate here. We have a wonderful aquifer, and it's supplying 80% of the water, is my understanding, for Salisbury and also for other parts of the county. So I just really encourage you to be very careful and to perhaps allow some public comments if that's possible later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johansson. Any other public comments? Yes, sir.
My name's Tim Curry. I live on White Low Road. I have a crop dusting business there. Much like the trash man, they prefer to be called sanitation engineers. We prefer to be called aerial applicators. But anyways, you know, the other day I was out there fishing in the Chesapeake Bay, and I got looking around. I couldn't see land anywhere. I thought, there's a lot of water out here. In fact, it's a heck of a lot of water. But even so, they say that the poultry industry, as you know, is making problems with the bay. And my thought was, that's a lot of water out there in the bay, but the Paleo water channel, is really a whole lot smaller than the bay, a lot smaller than the bay. And we're talking about putting a concentration of chicken houses, not just one or two, over top of it. And, with that goes these retention ponds, which would be directly over that. And I'm thinking, I don't know the numbers, I'm not a scientist, but I'm thinking, gee, if you were to say how many gallons of water are in the bay for each chicken house we have on the shore, and then turn around and say how many gallons of water would be for each chicken house in this concentrated area over the Paleo Channel, I would say that it would be significantly different, a lot more concentrated. And then my other thoughts were, some of our, I think our neighboring counties are wrestling with what do you call a farm and what do you call a industry, if I were to say you're going to have 100 chicken houses in one spot, I think most people would say that's no longer a farm, but that's an industry complex. And so I don't know where you draw the line, where you leave a farm and turn into an industrial complex, but somewhere, I guess, between 3 and 4 chicken houses and 100, there's a line there, and I don't know where that is, but I feel like 13 is really pushing the envelope. And then on a personal level, my runway does go directly over that piece of land within just hundreds of feet of leaving my property. I know a lot of the poultry people do have concerns with the noise. It will scare the birds, and they'll all run to one end of the building, and it will smother thousands and thousands of these birds, and then they're going to come back and say you're liable, you just killed all our chickens. So I would like to emphasize that we were there first. Bennett Airport is a public airport, and it's directly adjacent to that area also. So, and my last thought was with this concentration of manure and so forth, where in the rest of the county, the chicken houses are in smaller quantities spread throughout the county. The burden on the land is dissipated over a broad area, and I wonder if you're going to put that concentration in one area, if that burden might be too much with the manure and so forth. And of course, we already have just sludging operations and so forth, like Center Grow and some of the others in the area. And I'm, who's to say how much is too much? So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. You have one, excuse me.
Give it a lady there.
You can go stand up there with him.
You need to stay up close here. Morning.
I'm Howard Bennett, own Bennett Airport, and we were concerned over all these chicken houses for noise and scaring up these chickens and causing them to smother, and then they'll be wanting us to be in a lawsuit. But I'm still like Timmons is concerned about the Paleo Channel, and I guess they've done some environmental studies on that, what they're going to do, dig these lagoons out there where the chickens' houses are going. And we just don't want to get sued over a mess of smothered chickens. From the noise from the airport, it's open to the public, and we don't have no control over who comes and goes, what time of day or night. The state has been operating out of there with their helicopter. I guess they're training, night and day. And they got a whole lot to say. Other than that, we think that they're talking like 13 chicken houses. What they're going to do with the chicken runoff and manure and all that stuff. And the trailer park and all is right in the prevailing wind from the northwest. And I don't think that's going to be pretty smell, but you guys will have to decide on all that.
Mr. Bennett, I did have one question, specifically in reference to the airport and the planes. When the airport or the runway is approved, I'm assuming there has to be some approval. Is there an overlay district that's created to allow for, ingress and egress of the planes coming in and out?
It's called a glide slope.
Glide slope?
Yeah.
Is there something that maybe can restrict the properties nearby?
Well, they got, on the end of the runway, they got like 4-to-1 approach end or descending in. Mm-hmm. And the sides of a runway are 7-to-1, according to the state.
What do you mean 7-to-1?
7-to-1.
So there are height restrictions?
Off the sides of the runway.
Okay.
Nothing can be built in that 7-to-1, which I guess them chicken houses would be far enough. Well, not really, because one runway goes right over top of where I've seen them out there drilling it. Test drilling or whatever. Okay. So you have to take that into consideration too, so.
Yeah, I haven't heard that topic mentioned in any of this at all yet, so it's good to know.
Yeah.
The other part that was brought up about the noise and the smothering the chickens, I don't know when we get ready to approve this, if there could be something in the approval process that releases if we approve it, releases the liability of the airport from that, because some planes are louder than others.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know whether that can be done or not.
Were there any questions directly for Mr. Bennett? Because we will have a work session.
Just want one question that would add on to what you asked. I wonder if you're allowed to expand your airport, would that be in the way? Would that prevent you from expanding if you're allowed to?
No, I don't think
Okay.
it would. I don't think it would.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bennett. We appreciate it. If you're done, you can continue. I didn't want to shut you off.
All right. That all?
That's all I have.
All right.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Mr. Bennett.
Thank you. I'm Kathy Phillips with Assateague Coastal Trust. I'm the Assateague Coastkeeper, the waterkeeper in the Coastal Bays area. First, I just wanted to bring to President Cannon's attention and Mr. Davis that yesterday and early this morning, I emailed to both of you a number of documents that have been used and referenced to with the work that citizens down in Somerset County have been doing with their planning commission related to the siting of the large industrial scale CAFOs close to residential areas. So if you haven't seen that yet, if you could reference your emails and perhaps share those documents with the rest of the council.
I believe we had forwarded all those documents.
Okay.
But I doubt the council's had a chance to
Great.
actually open them
And
yet.
then just very briefly, I would just like to add to the discussion that bringing, as these large-scale operations start to move into Wycomico County, please take into consideration and go back and reference, number one, your water resource element with the state of Maryland. I know certainly in Worcester County, that was a document that was drafted 4 years ago at least, and based on information that's probably 5 years old or more. It may be similar here in Wycomico County. Your water resource element is a working document that guides the county in how much development, any kind of development, you can do here in the county that's going to use water. Are you going to have enough water resource for your housing development, your commercial development, and your agricultural uses? These large industrial scale houses withdraw much more water than the older style traditional poultry houses used to withdraw. So you may have to go back and perhaps reference the water resource element and look into that to see what impacts increasing poultry production in Wycomico County is going to have to your water resources. And I would also ask you to please reference your your watershed implementation plan for Wycomico County. Again, when the WIPs were being developed, this level of density and intensity of poultry production in Wycomico County and, in fact, the Lower Shore really wasn't happening at that time. These new larger houses that are being developed, like this 13-house project, there's also, as I understand it from a resident who contacted me, there's another property up near Delmar that's being considered for 12 or 13 houses also. So as these larger scale operations come in, these are not your traditional family farm operations. The developers who are putting in these confined animal feeding operations don't have a big farm. They have no use for the excess manure. They have no use for the manure, period, that's being generated inside these poultry houses. So it all has to be transported out. They don't have fields to use it on. So has this been taken into consideration with the WIP? Are you going to be able to meet your WIP goals with the enormous amount of new manure, excess manure that's going to be generated? And this is a question that we're posing to the entire state right now also, is this problem of the intensifying of poultry production on Delmarva. How is the state going to meet its TMDL goals for the Chesapeake Bay? So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments?
My name's John Grout, and I'm just representing myself right now. I was called after I was interviewed by a couple media outlets, unprepared, from a neighbor who saw that and said, do you realize that another neighbor has 2 farms up for sale? This neighbor who called me is a major farmer. 2 farms up for sale, both of them advertised as good for poultry. One is under contract. So I think maybe you are already aware, more than I, that this is not just an isolated spot, that there is some concern among many people who live in the out in the county about how it's going to affect many areas of water, air, livability. So it's not just environmentalists, it's farmers, it's people who are going to live right next to them. So it's something, not just this one plant, which is a huge operation, and I had no idea how big it was when I first started reading about it. But there's a lot of this in the works, and you want to be aware of that, I think. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Grout. Any other public comments? Right. Seeing none, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn so we can go into open work sessions followed by a closed session.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Meeting's adjourned. For your benefit, we're going to take a half-hour recess. I hate to do that, but the way the schedule works, there are some people who I know are anticipating this topic to come up more along the 12:30, 1 o'clock time period. So in order for everyone to be able to participate, we will have a half an hour recess and be back at 12:30. Thank you very much.
Thank you.